Hey everybody, welcome back to Tavern Talks. I'm your wonderful barkeep for the evening, and once again, a new guest has entered the tavern. Tonight we have Ink GM, a local from here in Virginia, which is awesome, and a professional game master, amongst other amazing feats. We're going to find out all this here soon, but and then some. But before we start, I want to do a couple things for new players or new people that are coming into the tavern. There's a couple new things that have been showing up here over the last probably 2 or 3 weeks that I want everybody to realize are there. One is the chat commands. Chat commands are the 4 different commands you can utilize inside Twitch chat that you can get access to information on our guests, information on our Discord, information on where you can find old episodes, as well as information on our newest sponsors. Currently, we have 3 sponsors that are working with us through Tavern Talks. We have our wonderful people over there at Monument Studios that are offering over 5,000 pieces of production audio equipment or sounds, which is awesome.
Great people.
Great people. We also have Canadian Dice, who does incredible dice. I got a giant box of them a couple weeks ago, and
Nice.
amazing.
There you go.
And but they've also offered us the opportunity. So with the code Misfit15, all one word, you can get 15% off your dice. So why not, right? More click clacks
Yeah.
for the party.
Can never have
And
enough.
finally, last but not least, of course, if you're looking for apparel like this, it's coming. We're working on merchandise as we speak, and all that will be hosted by our wonderful friends over at DungeonGrandmaster.com, who is a local here within the United States, because we wanted to offer that opportunity. And not only are we going to have T-shirts, but they're going to be premium quality T-shirts rather than us getting something that is going to fall apart in 2 weeks. So yeah, awesome. Well, I've said my speech tonight, so now I get to leave it off to the other people. Charlie, once again, thank you for coming in and hanging out with us tonight.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, man. I've been
Kind of
looking forward to
run
this since we talked about it.
right, kind of run us down, like down through your, I guess, your 30-second to a minute elevator speech. Let's hear what Ink GM is all about.
Yeah, because I totally have this prepared and I do this all the time. So I just really wanted to play D&D more. That was the inspiration for making Ink GM and working with Rogue Game Masters. And I was very surprised and very excited and humbled that not only did I get to do, and I'm running 3 games regularly every other week, but now I also have this really fun Instagram that I've been able to be a part of the community more and get more involved and meet more people. And it's just been an incredible experience in just a wild 6 months, really. So I'm just really excited, really grateful, and can't wait to see where it goes from there.
Yeah, no, you're doing amazing too. Like I said, 6 months. I've been doing this for almost 3 years, and my Instagram is not even near where yours is at yet. So we'll keep working on it though, because we decided that I did kind of the wrong thing starting off in the world, which was let's try to hit every avenue, and no, that was a horrible idea. It hurt painfully, and
Mm,
because when you start saying, "Oh yeah, I'm going to do TikTok, and I'm going to do Twitch, and I'm going to do Instagram, and I'm going to do Facebook," and then Threads came out, and then it's too many.
yeah, definitely found Instagram to just be the space that I really thrive in and I really enjoy. The other ones, we'll see where it goes. I do have the Twitch account over here, and I do have the YouTube. Got a few things that are in the pipeline I'm working on to hopefully bring more content there.
Definitely.
But yeah, I'm with you. You got to find the ones that you really enjoy and spend the majority of your time on that. And I mean, you're doing awesome things over here on Twitch, so kudos to you on that, man.
I appreciate that. Yeah,
Yeah.
we try our best over here in the tavern. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to warm things up. Oh, thank you, Glass, for subscribing here for the night. That definitely
Hey,
helps keep the lights
that's
on,
awesome.
and we're looking at some new software to help improve the audio for the audio quality. So that will definitely be going towards stuff like that. Um, yeah, awesome. Yeah, we've got a bunch of people in here tonight. It looks like a full house,
Oh,
which is great. Um, My question to you is: do you have a world that you have started building?
Yes, so that was really what kicked this off.
Mm.
Several years ago, I started this homebrew world setting called Adventures After an Arcane Apocalypse, and I'm very excited. And again, got I'm very grateful. I've got a few things lined up to hopefully get it published next year. That's the goal. So I'm very excited. But yeah, it's this homebrew setting that's just been a ton of fun. In a brief nutshell, Earth, 500 years in the future, 5 centuries of arcane apocalyptic warfare, uh, puts Earth smack dab in the material plane. And my favorite thing is when I get to introduce new players to this world, I, as the game master, get to tell them, hey, choose whatever you want to be your character. Anything that is in the 50 years of D&D and expanded and third-party material is canon, because Earth, in my homebrew setting, is right now the focal point of the material plane. And so that makes everything with D&D and, like I said, all third-party content canon, which is just so much fun.
Oh yeah.
And my players absolutely love it, and it's a great challenge and a lot of fun for me to be able to find ways to incorporate different things, and why, a warforge from Eberron is hanging out, with a various different, elves from different planes of existence with, different genasis, and it's just so much fun.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a lot of fun, and it also sounds like something that it allows people to be able to actually utilize everything. Right? It gives us the opportunity to not only utilize things within the Dungeons and Dragons realm, but also things within the newer stuff that's coming out in third party stuff, such as
Yeah.
Cobalt Press has got a bunch of stuff coming out. Mana Point Press has a bunch of stuff coming out. Goodness, I can.
Roll Dimension 20, I mean, the big ones, the little ones,
Yeah.
and it makes it also just with so much possibility. It makes it bringing, I have one player who is playing this Kenku, that has this kind of Viking kind of artificer sorcerer background, and it's this, you know again, third party publishing that I had not even heard about until he had brought it forth, and that was really really cool. So I mean, but it's easy to incorporate that when everything is possible, and I think that's the beauty of it, and that's what I wanted to do, and I'm just really grateful I've had so many players who have been so receptive to it. And before GMing professionally with Rogue Game Masters, I was, the typical person playing D&D, GMing for my friends and family, and it would be, uh, like with my wife's family, for instance, they're all in North Carolina, and so to get them together and rally the troops and get babysitters, we get to play a weekend of D&D, but it's like once every 6 months.
Right.
And, for those that are a little bit more local, it was just the normal life struggles of getting everybody together at the table, and we'd have to cancel last minute. And it was always that question of, it's Thursday. Do we get to play D&D? I hope so. And now with Rogue Game Masters, it offers such a neutral and an exciting platform that the players can engage with, that, they're paying for a seat to be there.
Mhm.
They have a vested interest. But also for me, I have my own personal struggles with ADHD and anxiety and PTSD. And sometimes it can be a little bit hard to get that focus and make sure that I'm prepared and ready. But knowing that I have people that, are not only giving their hard-earned money, but also their time to be there, means I need to give it my best and deliver my best. And so it's a great encouragement to work extra hard. And because of all those factors, everyone is there and so excited to be there at the table every week. We hardly ever have to reschedule or cancel, and if we do, everyone's excited to make it work one way or the other.
Mhm.
And so now I've played more D&D in the last 6 months doing this than I've had probably in the last 2 years,
Yeah.
and it's just been a phenomenal experience, and I'm just so grateful.
No, I mean, I completely. Everything you just said about that makes a ton of sense, and it's what I saw the first 2 years of, tabletop misfits. Uh, I did the professional game mastering thing through Start Playing Games for a little bit, and then I broke off and I did my own thing for a couple months. And I had I had 3 tables a week sometimes. And then I realized doing that, plus the 2 streams, plus having 4 kids, plus having, a full time job, life became really hectic really
Yeah,
fast.
I believe that.
And I had to make a decision on, do I want to continue to promote the world with what we're doing here at Tabletop Misfits, or do I want to continue to professionally game master? And as much as I loved my tables for professionally game mastering, because I do agree with you, there's an invested interest when you see stuff like that. Because you've now, not only are you putting your time into the game, but you're putting money towards the game, and
Hmm.
you have a expectation.
Yeah.
Though I caveat the expectation, because I have had arguments with people that have been like, "Well, are we going to get a this experience?" No, I'm not that person. Like, I can't tell you yes or no on that answer, because that's not how this whole thing works. You're placing you're getting an invested interest in you being able to be at the seat, and me being on time and being professional and having a story ready for you. Um, and investing my own energy, because we know as game masters, it's not, I don't sit down at a table for 3 hours and that's the only time I'm working on that game. Like, it doesn't work like that. As much as we think that even the least amount of prep people ever out there, you're either thinking about it, prepping for it, gathering information. Like, there's always something happening. But yeah, I've brought the chat a question. And for those
Okay.
who have been around here for a long time, they know who Steve is. For those that are new, they might not know who Steve is. So, has anybody ever seen Google Maps and that random character that just kind of gets dropped somewhere?
Oh, sure.
So, that's Steve, at least in
Okay.
our tavern. Since you said you have a world built, I asked the tavern if we should bring Steve to your world.
Ooh, okay. Yeah.
So, what we're going to do tonight, to kind of give people that have maybe never played with you a sense of understanding of your world, where are we dropping Steve tonight? Where would you like to
And
drop Steve tonight? What is
yeah.
a good location to give people a taste of what they're looking at in your world?
Ooh. Well, to answer that question, I'm going to pose it with a little bit of background.
Go for it.
So one of the homebrew setting was when I was reading the Dungeon Master Manual, and it says if you're going to do homebrew for a campaign, they say pick a theme, some kind of thematic element, another game, video game or book or franchise or something that you're particularly interested in, and build your world around that. And I kind of struggled with that concept because you look at our world, it's not homogenous. It is
Mm-hmm.
rich, diverse, beautifully
Absolutely.
different from person to person, corner to corner, edge to edge, um, time period to time period. It varies vastly. So I really struggled with the idea of just this kind of one singular concept to kind of start off with. So I thought, you know, Earth, the best inspiration that we have. And what really sold it to me personally was one of the elements that I find very magical about in-person tabletop gaming. You can't trade it for anything. Is the magic of when everybody's together, that immersion that everyone can share when collaboratively telling this story together. Part of making it this apocalyptic Earth 5 centuries in the future, what's beautiful about that is it gives everyone at the table already a bit of buy-in. They already feel invested. They know part
Mm.
of the lore, instead of going to again, a lot of rich history in the 50 years of D&D, but especially for some new players, it can be a huge hurdle uh, to step into and be able to catch up with some of the other players that might be more familiar. So this way, players are already have a wealth of their own personal knowledge and experience to delve into. Um, but then on top of that, it also gives a lot of natural and organic influences to the various different parts of the world. I get, the privilege and experience of being able to break it with 5 centuries of arcane and nuclear warfare. So it's a little familiar, but it's a little bit different. some places are way different than what people might be expecting that corner of the world to be 5 centuries from now. I
Oh.
see some people in the chat shouting it out. Um, yeah, Australia. That is a fascinating one. Australia's suffering from a arcane kind of zombie virus almost. You've got some places where there are no laws, um, but people subscribe to a degree of civility of treat others how you want to be treated. So if you want to get punched in the face, you can punch people in the face. But of course, there's always going to be consequences. Another great one is I always love the idea of worlds like you see in Divergent or Hunger Games,
Mm.
where they are this isolated society, and they are just completely insulated from the rest of the world. Right? They have a
Gotcha.
lot going on entirely, but when I love reading those books and watching those movies and just thinking, what is happening 100 miles from the border? We only ever see maybe a glimpse of what's on the other side,
Mm-hmm.
but hardly ever do we get to know what is happening on the other side of the world from where they're at.
Absolutely.
And there's a city that's in there that has walled itself off, for the last 4 or 5 centuries and cut itself off from society. And it went from we need to build this wall to keep us safe from everything outside to over 5 centuries now being we have this wall because there is nothing outside. It's this is where life is, and we have to protect the life that we have here, and this is why we stay in our little bubble.
Yeah.
Um, and so if you could have a whole campaign that is completely in that massive, completely walled and have no interaction with the rest of the world, um, or you can totally just go all kinds of places. The other thing that's beautiful too is because Earth is on the material plane, it also means I tell my players all the time, if you guys want to become space pirates and dip out to the astral sea, you can.
Absolutely.
There
Yeah.
is no limitations whatsoever. And so to drop Steve, it would be like, well, we could drop Steve on this little tiny planet, or we
Mm-hmm.
could drop Steve on any of the other material planes
Right.
that are in existence. But then on top of that, with this, you've got 500 years of all of these gods and lore and champions and villains that have been raging throughout everywhere, not just the material plane, but in all the other planes.
Mm-hmm.
There are some planes that have been completely altered. One of which, in this homebrew setting, is the a plane of cold, where the winter Eldrin elves tend to
Ah.
stay. They are having the cold siphoned. The winter weather there is being unnaturally taken away, and their homes are melting. That is part of the influence, though, of the players and the story that we've been telling, and also a product of how chaotic the material plane has
Mm-hmm.
gotten as a result of this. Um, so yeah, it's wherever Steve happens to land is either lucky or unlucky depending on how you look at it,
Yeah.
and if he can survive, that's the biggest question.
Well, Steve is incorporeal, so he doesn't he can't be touched, he can't be seen.
That's what
Steve
Steve
kind of
thinks.
just does his thing, so it does help him that at least that way. Let's see here. Like one place in you don't hear a lot of information on in Dungeons and Dragons in general. So we think Dungeons and Dragons immediately. We're thinking Eastern European, Western
Mm,
European
yeah,
style, right? Let's drop Steve somewhere off kilter. Let's find out what's happening
please.
over there. So we're going to drop him in the deepest portions of the or Amazon jungle down in South
Yes.
America. What's happening down there right now in your world?
Okay, so for any of my players that are tuning in right now, I have no campaigns that are so right now. I have five, no, six active campaigns that are going on concurrently in present time in the homebrew setting.
Mm.
All of those players and characters are, it's so funny when they do something and they truly create the butterfly effect, and you get to
Mm-hmm.
see how a decision here impacts 1,000 miles over here. And weirdly enough, though, nobody has gone to South America yet. it hasn't happened.
It's a rare area that
Hmm.
has a lot of culture to it, but it's
So much.
outside of
And the
the normal.
geography.
The geography is
Yeah,
incredible.
I
I
know.
mean, I almost wanted to drop you like right at the edge of like Peru, but like I was like, let's go straight into the jungle. Like let's
Yeah.
see what does 5,000 years look like when depending on what's happening down there, that jungle probably has not been touched unless something has changed.
Unless something else. So that's one of the other things that I also, when I started building my homebrew campaign, I wanted to, because I love as a GM, when I'm sitting there at the table, my players are under the spotlight. They're the center of the focus. They're what I'm here for. What they do, I'm responding as the world and the NPCs around them, reacting accordingly. However, none of my campaigns does this world revolve around any
Absolutely.
individual player. So I have things written. I can't even tell you how many different Google Docs I've got going, and different documents and notes and
Mm-hmm.
notebooks. I've got a notebook right here. One of like six that I've got, um, and there's all kinds of stuff that's going on that players have yet to ever interact with, dream of interacting with. I have a whole subterranean city of dwarfs and earth genasies that nobody has even, you know, thought of that they could even interact with. But in South America, what's actually very interesting over there is it went from being, you know, what we have up until the 21st century, um, with all these different countries and beautiful geography, it's actually been taken over a lot by a cult of shapeshifters. Um, and there is, I can't remember off the top of my head, and I could go digging through my notes right now, but I don't want to waste everyone's time. Um, but there is this, one of my favorite YouTube channels is Monster of the Week.
Mm.
And there was this really, really cool monster that was done about 2 years ago, um, that essentially is this just 20-foot uh, Mayan god, death god, um, and just was absolutely amazing. There's various things that are going on in different plots between the gods and such that are still alive, and those that are clinging to life, and those that are taking power that have never had power. Um, but one of the things is there's a ton of questionable people. I've always said, whenever there's a war going on, morality is subjective to the people that are on the side of it. People that one side may think are the villains or the bad people, the other side thinks are their heroes, and that's very much the case. There's all kinds of different influences and agencies that are acting of their own accord and with their own interests, but are also collaborating with one another for shared interests and goals. And down there, there is some influences that are very much empowering a cult of werewolves that have decided to reclaim the Amazon after, you know, what has been the last, presently in our time, a century of devastation. Um, and yeah, they very much feel that they are the protectors of that, but there are very much other people that may feel that they are the villains. They are the
Mm.
monsters of the night.
I did
Whereas
this.
they,
I did this flip around in a campaign a few years ago that my players have still to this day been like, "You need to write this in a book," and I was like, "I don't have time."
yeah,
um, but yeah, no, I love that, and I love the idea that the way it's created, at least in this area where Steve has been dropped, that to some people there is, some people this is the good people. These are the ones that are protecting the area of the world. Others they're like, no, these are the ones that are destroying the world. Like
yeah,
there's this tug and pull, right? And depending on how your characters and your players want to deal with that, um, is really going to be the main focus on who is going to be the bad guy and who is going to be the good guy, right?
yeah. The other thing too, that several of my players have noticed as well, is that places that they would have thought might have survived certainly have not. The
Mm-hmm.
first thing in warfare is, you attack the most largest, densely populated places, create devastation, create chaos, create panic.
Yep.
So very early on in the apocalypse, there was complete devastation, both nuclear and arcane. And so your largest settlements and countries and cities were completely wiped off the map. Places that are harder to reach, more further inland, right? Like the Midwest of the US would have been geographically much harder at the time to impact rather than the coastlines.
Mm-hmm.
So you would have a lot more devastation and a lot less, you know, uh, recovering settlements on the coast than you would have more interior in the land. So whereas now we see that a lot, coasts, with airports, naval, ocean ports and stuff like that
Mm-hmm.
have really influenced with international transportation and with international shipping has really influenced the growth of cities and societies. And now that's been kind of flip flopped because of the natural defenses that certain things pose, um, and those insular abilities to stay hidden, both from, again, the monsters of the night or the gods in the sky.
Right. I think the interesting thing with this is, and it's fun to drop Steve in places because Steve has no understanding. So
Yeah.
dropping him in somewhere, we try to go as deeply into it as we can. So we're dropping into probably the smaller or medium-sized village within the area closest to the jungle. Where is he
Okay.
dropping?
Um, Gosh.
I mean, we can pull. I can
Yeah.
grab Steve and I can move him if it's something that's easier for you to like
It's not so
have a
much. It's not so much.
larger
It's not so much
understanding.
easier, but it's just a matter of like, ooh, how much do I want to reveal? Because I've got like,
Ah,
like 20 to 30 players, uh, you know, at a given time. So anybody that watches this, they're gonna get a lot of insight.
okay.
Um,
Do we pull Steve to Australia then? Since people know about Australia, is
a
that what I
few
need?
people over there. Well, see, then that's the question of like, well, more people that are over there, right? Um, I think rather we could just give them like kind of a panoramic montage of the
Okay,
entire world, rather.
sure. We'll grab
Um,
Steve and we're gonna.
yeah,
If anybody's ever watched Google Maps, we're gonna pull him up to the up as high as he can, and he's gonna look over. So we're gonna hit because I don't want to give away too much because, like you said, you have so many active campaigns moving at one
yeah.
time. We're gonna hit each continent, and I just want a little bit, kind of just this quick
Mm,
idea of what is happening here after the 5,000 years of destruction have happened. It has things changed to the point where it's not even the same continent at this point. Like some of these continents, if there's a massive destruction, could have been split in two, or they could have been, sunk. Like I could be like, "Hey, what is Europe?" And you're like, "It's underwater." Like, "Oh shit, never mind. Guess we're not
yeah,
talking about Europe anymore." Uh, um,
yeah. So definitely, first and foremost, what Steve would be able to observe,
mhm.
right, is there's a lot more blue.
Okay.
Uh, you definitely have from all of the
The coastlines have pushed inward.
spells, the nuclear warfare, the general global warming that is accelerated, as a result of all kinds of natural and unnatural influences
Hmm.
over 5 centuries. There's a lot more blue, and that again, not necessarily just because of um, the ice caps melting. Like I said,
Right.
there's planes that are having their magic and weather siphoned from different influences.
Right.
So you're definitely going to notice oceans have gotten a little bit bigger. Now it's not water world, but yes, the coastlines have definitely been eroded and decreased in size. Steve would definitely notice with if he's looking at an old school map,
Yeah.
from the
Like if we
21st
pulled up the
century,
atlas and I'm like, "All
what's
right,
looking different. He would definitely notice that you had a lot of tectonic activity.
okay."
So, specifically, the west coast of North America has been broken off into pieces,
Mm.
because of the tectonic plate that runs right through there. Um, the panhandle of Florida, completely separate. It's now an island. Um, won't even get into why that happened. And I can tell you it's not because of the tectonic plates, but um, Florida's a wild place now and 5 centuries from now.
Yeah, Florida's a strange place.
Oh man.
Doesn't matter
um,
what world you play in. Florida's a strange place. So
yes. The geography is going to be very different too. So again, a lot of the places where there's big cities that have, if you look on a live map right now, if you were to go to NASA and look at the satellite imagery that they have, you're going to be able to see the massive cities that have changed the landscape, even from space.
hmm
Pretty much all of those are going to be wiped out, completely gone. You're going to have some places that are still devastated craters and others that have been reclaimed by nature.
hmm
Ones that, either the nuclear and chaotic magic elements have either accelerated the natural wildlife growth or introduced new mutated plant species that are now thriving over there, or
mm
perhaps it's now completely devastated. Various factors have left it still inhospitable for life 5 centuries from now. Like I said, there's in up in North America, a lot of those cities, especially on the coast, are gone. But you're going to see, a little bit more activity, a little bit more um, inorganic structures and settlements, kind of more on the Midwest in the middle, and then you're going to see this massive, massive, massive. Uh, the biggest city is going to be right up there in Canada, and you're going to have this massive wall and just skyscrapers that pierce the clouds. We're
Okay.
talking, 3 miles tall,
Yeah.
and just completely just stacked in this one area on top of each other. Um, Australia is Australia. I love the idea that Australia has always had the motto that it's the most dangerous place on the planet.
Right.
And funny enough, from a one-shot adventure that happened in this setting a couple years ago, it resulted in a zombie apocalypse that started. And for several decades, your traditional kind of zombie, but with an arcane element to the virus, of course. Um, Nothing really devastating like that's going to alter the rest of the world. It's pretty isolated. However, now we've seen, again, because of various different arcane and nuclear influences, we're now starting to see accelerated mutation and growth and awareness of these zombies. Some of my players have
Mm.
engaged in that. Mike knows very well about this from a one shot I ran over there, about something called the Collective that is growing and amassing and recruiting people into its undead but not undead, right? Existence. But yeah, so that's going to be very interesting to see how that kind of shapes and affects it. But again, it's the players. Steve is looking at things. He's going to be seeing all kinds of different elements, explosions, spells that are being casted. Another thing he will see that many people have also not noticed yet is there might even perhaps be a city floating in the sky that is rotating around the
Ooh.
orbit that you can't see from the ground.
But Steve
Because
can see because he's flying.
Steve can see because he's flying. However, well, really, you think about it, right? If there is a society, a city that wanted to distance themselves from the ground, they really only have to do arcane enchantments of, different illusions or anything like that to look at the sky just on the bottom of whatever their floating civilization is.
Right.
There's no reason on the top to do anything. So yeah, Steve would very much see them every so often, just kind of going around. Um, but yeah, and then there's also things that Steve is going to see. The subterranean societies and cultures that have, removed themselves from
Mhm.
the outer society, the struggling that is above Earth, and above ground, and has decided to isolate themselves. Others that have left the plane of existence, like I said, Earth Genasi's. Think about it. You've got a place that is rich in material, rich in chaos, rich with all kinds of different energy. And there's nothing, no established societies underground.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's ripe for moving in.
Oh yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
And then on top of that, with all of the chaotic influences, both, natural and unnatural mutations because of time, nuclear radiation, and arcane uh, chaos magic, you're also going to have lots and lots of um, societies that are also going to take to the water. Um, you have all kinds of, it's actually one of my favorites is one of my players wanted to be a blood hunter, part of a society that is water genasi that live underwater. And he was like, oh, could we do that? And I was like, yeah, we can absolutely do that. But little does he know that there's also other
Oh yeah.
subaquatic societies as well. One of my favorites,
You're
again,
not the only
nobody,
one out there in the fish
yeah,
in the
not
in
the
the
only one
sea,
out there.
bud.
But I love the idea of these blood hunter water genasi that have their own, established
Hmm.
tribe and world in this coastal reef, in the doldrums right there in the middle of the Atlantic. But another one that's also my favorite is were sharks. And there is a ton of were sharks that have established a society in uh, Lake Victoria in Africa, and it is one of the largest naturally occurring water bodies of water in the world. And there's a whole city that lives under there
Mm.
that has just been absolutely having a you know great time.
Oh,
So,
that's perfect.
oh, yep, there we go. There's one of my players. I see them.
Oh, you got
Well,
a
now I
bunch
know
in
where we
here.
are going. There we
There's a
go.
bunch in here. So I will say though, then that makes sense. It's unique because I think that this is something that we take for granted a lot of times is the idea that when the world is not as accessible as it is in our day and age,
Mhm.
it becomes interesting to see how much certain cultures know about each other. So, like
Yes.
you're stating, and this goes back all the way to older books. Like, let's drop some old school stuff. Let's go all the way back to Lord of the Rings type style, where the hobbits only knew their area, right? Like that's
Hmm.
it. That's all they knew. They knew
Yes.
that there's stuff out there, but that's their stuff. We don't deal with their stuff. We deal with our stuff.
Yeah.
And what happens when that conflicts with your people? The thing I love about the idea that you're creating is that you're creating all these pockets within your world,
Hmm.
and that it's not until you decide that you want to step out of that pocket that the world becomes vaster to other people.
Yeah.
Though they might not know that what they're doing actually is affecting much more than their own
Yeah.
little pocket of the space. Um,
Yeah.
one of
It's I tell my players in session zeros, whenever I have a new player that joins, I tell them that the big thing I always want them to remember is, especially in this world, and I wanted to make that really, really evident and very tangible, is that sometimes I feel like in some D&D games and sessions that it can be very gold focused, right? How much gold can we get? What kind of
mm-hmm.
what kind of rare items can we get so that we can trade and get other cooler, bigger things or buy things, right? Um,
The Diablo effect is what I call that thing.
yeah. So I tell my players all the time, think about this, which is that, like you talked about the hobbits, right? Not knowing anything beyond the Shire because that's only where they've ever ventured to.
Right.
It's going to be the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Even this society of were sharks in Africa is going to have no knowledge of anything that is, over in the society in Canada beyond the wall. I mean, that's going to seem like a fairy tale,
Right.
or you tell them a subterranean society is going to have, almost virtually no knowledge of the intricacies of anywhere else above ground. So I tell them information is valuable. Use that
Oh,
information, record that.
absolutely.
Maps, I mean, maps can be, to some it may be, oh, well, yeah, this is just our world that we've always known. This is our area, our shire, right? There's a
Right.
detailed map of our shire. But if you were to give that to someone on the other side of the world,
Yeah.
I mean, that is a huge unknown
Absolutely.
to them.
Have you seen the
um
new Have you seen the new Transformers movie yet?
I have not, no.
So not going to spoil anything other than the fact that this exact conversation we're having right now is key in that movie. And
Okay.
it's the idea that they're being put to a event happened in a certain way without me giving any spoilers of what happened, and it made them stay within their location because the outer side of this was bad because that's how they were told.
Yeah.
And when they go out there and realize that it's massive and it's different, it's like their eyes are opened up. And I think that's such a cool concept to play with players um, in any setting. I'm telling a story right now in Icewind Dale. Icewind Dale is a very small portion of the Forgotten Realms. People
Yeah.
always forget when they say the Forgotten Realms, we've forgotten 95% of it. Like,
Yeah.
great name for the concept, but the idea is that the very few pieces that we actually take connection to is a very small amount of it. Um, and this is a lot of books and a lot of movies and a lot of things like that where, and I didn't think this was the conversation we would have tonight, but it's interesting to think about what cultures and what characters and what players really know and what they think they know. And this is where I tell people a lot of the times if you're a new game master, and this hopefully will help somebody in the long run, pick two ways to design your world. And I like this second way a lot better because of this one reason is I don't need to build everything off the off the
No.
off the cuff right away. If I say, "Hey, we're all starting in this village and everybody lives in this village and everything else is outside of it is unknown because this is how you grew up," then it gives us that starting point, and then from there, based on what the players are enjoying, we move out and we grow. Um, I think sometimes it's very exhausting for new game masters to try to pick up the idea that they have to build this massive world very quickly. Um, but when you're running 6 campaigns, that world can build very fast, anyways.
Yes.
I will give you that.
And that's the
So,
thing, though, too, is I also very much encourage game masters, and I tell them, and I'll give a shout out to my Instagram. Part of what's been really fun is making these reels and having these different influences, and being able to poke fun at things, but also bring a little bit of, you know, uh, wisdom to the forefront. One of my favorite tips that I like to give game masters is actually from Doctor Strange, and it's one of my favorite reels that I made, and it's the Sorcerer Supreme telling Doctor Strange to get control, you have to give up control.
mhm.
You cannot change the course of the river, but that doesn't mean that you don't have access to that power. You have to go with the flow of it, and that's what I like to tell game masters is, you know, work with your players. It's collaborative storytelling. If you are the only one telling the story and you are ruling everything that happens in your homebrew setting, it's not collaborative anymore.
No, go write a book.
Go write a book, absolutely. But when bring your players, let them create stuff. And I have players sometimes that joke and they're like, "Ooh, I'm gonna break it," and I was like, "Break the world, please." There's already contingencies for the material plane to break because there is an influence that's trying to do something like that. Perhaps, who knows? I don't know. Everything cannot be 100% assured, by the way, because of who's in that. But yeah, it's you don't have to make everything. I like to make enough, so that my players have a menu, they have reference, they have the feeling of that they're in that place, but at the same time, they can still make choices. They can still bring influences of their own.
Mhm.
Um, and that I feel just makes the world a lot more alive, but it also keeps the world from being this homogenous thing. Because if I wrote and built everything from my own singular perspective, it would not have the type of depth that it has right now because of all the wonderful players that I've had uh, be involved with it, and to listen to them and learn from them and share with them and collaborate, and brainstorm. Um, so yeah.
No, no, that's perfect. And like I said, this was kind of an off the cuff interview because I wasn't sure how I wanted to hit this on because you've been running
Yeah.
so many games. And a lot of times when I have game masters on, I like to bring Steve into it because I want to give people the idea that they can see something that they don't always expect when you get so into the minutia. Normally what we'll do is we'll
Mm,
go straight into the point where it's like, what town are we dropping Steve in? What does Steve see to his left and his right? And it's because we're trying to see how deep we can get into the imagery of understanding where you're at. But for you, because you're running so many games, I want to make sure that we're not giving away that lore because there are people in here who are now probably
yeah.
writing down the information.
And I hope they do.
And I hate to say that because there are also painfulnesses of it being on a stream, and that means that it's canon because people catch me all the time when I do this stuff.
Yeah.
Um, Including I have yet to reveal the innkeeper's name, and I will never reveal it. I don't care. You can go back
Mm.
131 episodes, you won't find out the name. I promise.
Very careful.
Um,
Very careful.
but no, this was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed the conversation that we've had on this. Um, the last thing I want to do with this is something I normally do in the beginning, but when did this journey start for you? When did TTRPGs become an interest to
Oh
you?
man, yeah. So this is always interesting. Both, and I like to see people's reactions, and also just for me. So I think if you talk to anybody, right,
Hmm.
when they talk about TTRPGs, the essence of it is collaborative storytelling.
Absolutely.
So to say, where did I get my start in that? I would say, when I was a kid, playing by myself, or with kids I'd never met before in various circumstances, and
Yeah.
trying to pass the time and escape from reality. I didn't have the best upbringing, and so for me, escaping into a reality and imagination of my own or others was something I always sought after, because
Hmm.
reality wasn't that great. But that is also what I love to bring to the table, and something with my professional games is I tell my players, I'm going to take away every obstacle there is, for you to be able to just sit down and enjoy. So I tell them,
Right.
I'll always have extra dice. I'll have extra, this, that, D&D Beyond is great to be able to have my players put their characters on there, because then they get to have their character there. And if they show up, and I tell them, even if your phone is broken, or your laptop, or you forgot your character sheets, if you do paper sheets, I can easily access it, put it all right there. I
Absolutely.
want people to be able to show up, have fun, and have that break from reality, you know, get a little bit of escapism, and in a way
Yeah.
where you get to just be with other people and tell a fun story and laugh and just not be yourself for a little bit, can be such a therapeutic,
Oh,
relaxing, and just really
100%.
fun time. So I mean, that case also, a lot of times I remember all the times being at the movies, and very much feeling, after I leave that movie, as a 10-year-old, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm totally that spy or that knight, where that great hero, or maybe that villain, you know, and just living off of that feeling for a couple hours. That is the part of D&D and TTRPGs that I love. It's the storytelling aspect of it with everyone else, and just diving into a world that we are sharing before us. At the same time, the aspect of, specifically when I got into D&D, my wife and I were actually trying to think about this the other day, and it was not until 2021 was when I got into it officially. One of my best friends, Forrest, was going to be doing a camp. He had been playing D&D for a while, and had a friend kind of drop out from a campaign, and they wanted to keep going. And he was like, "Hey, man, I think you would really enjoy this." And I was like, "Well, yeah, I think I would too." I remember one time I did interact with D&D before that, before 2021, and it was in the fifth grade. And I had been, some kids after school, because I was always after school. Didn't I was that kid that never got picked up until like 9 or 10 o'clock at night and was just sitting out on the curb.
Mm.
So there was a group of kids that were there after school one day, and they were like, "Hey, come play this game with us." And it was your classic kind of gatekeepery experience of like,
Mm.
hey, here's how you play D&D. Here's what you need to do. Here's what you're doing right. Here's what you're doing wrong, et cetera, et cetera. And for me, especially, when I was young and I had undiagnosed ADHD, among other things, it was really hard for me to grasp it, to learn it, to get, engage with it and understand all these mechanics. And it just overall wasn't a great experience for me.
Mm.
But I always thought it was super fascinating and interesting, that, fantasy aspect of it. And again, going into another place with other people was so exciting. So when the opportunity came up in 2021, I said, yes, let's do it. And it was just a ton of fun. And then, with COVID and everything, it was just also like everybody else that joined around that time. It was just a really great outlet and a really great place to still get together with people. But the best part absolutely was the in-person experience. And so earlier this year, I had a campaign that was going on with my wife and a couple friends. Long story short, that campaign fizzled out, but for good reasons. Two of the players ended up having kids, and it was, can't blame them. Life changes, absolutely. But I realized suddenly, I didn't have any D&D, and I really loved this homebrew world, and I was like, I want to do more of that. Dove into Rogue Game Masters in about March, of like, hey, I'm interested in doing this. Met with Chris and talked to him and put up, a couple one shots and had a campaign list, and was like, hope, somebody signs up. And, just kind of kept my nose on the grindstone of like, I'm just going to show up and share this world that I have that I love and see what other people think of it, and get that feedback and share that experience with them. And, maybe a couple more people will join and we'll have a full table. And then next thing I knew, I've got, 3 tables of 6 players each that, meet bi-weekly now, which is awesome. And then I've got other campaigns and one shots that I do outside of that. And now I'm running 6 campaigns, and it's just absolutely incredible. And so it's
Now, is that
just,
six can? No, let me rephrase that. Let me
yeah.
make sure that there's a clarification. 6 campaigns a week?
Not a week, no.
Okay, thank God.
Yeah. So it is
been there, done that. It's scary.
Yeah. I do typically have though about 2 games a week, but on top of that, then there are some.
2.
Yeah, and then there are some times where I end up going. There was one week where we kind of had to reschedule things because my wife and I took a trip, and we had to reschedule some things, and so I ended up having 4 sessions back to back to back over 4 days, and then led into a weekend with the family group on my wife's side of the family. And when they come together, like I said, it's like once every 6 months, but when we do, we show up and we play from Friday evening all day Saturday, where we order food in, and we're just going from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. And then we also play on Sunday until everybody's got to leave in the late afternoon. And so that was the biggest week of D&D I ever did, where it was 4 days straight of 3 to 4 hour sessions in the evening, and then a weekend of like approximately 18 hours of play. That was the most D&D I ever had, and my brain was absolute soup, but it was such a fun week, and I had a blast.
That's my weekend at Gen Con every year. It's a terrible time, but it's amazing.
Yeah. But yeah, and so it's really awesome.
No, man, this has been so fun, and I could talk about this all night. Like it would really happen. But we're closing in now. What this means, though, and this is where the chat gets involved.
Yes, please.
The hour has been up. We have talked, we have interviewed, we have had our chats. It's your turn to now ask the questions. I will stay on this channel for another 30 minutes if I have to, and I have no issue doing so. But I want to make sure, if that is the case, that you all. Hold on, what is Ink saying? Oh, yeah. Hold on, I'll post that.
Cool.
Nightbot is
Yeah, I was like,
brittle.
been talking about Rogue Game Masters. Let's go ahead
Yeah,
and drop
Nightbot
that in there.
Nightbot attacks. It's okay. I'll catch up on that one. He doesn't like doing people putting links in the channel because we have
Makes sense.
spam bots in here. But this is your chance. First of all, I'm gonna snag the first one that I saw pop up here
Oh
from
yeah. Okay.
Arclight Court. The the lighthouse keeper is in the town. Say hi to him. It's amazing. Can't wait to have him back here on the show and hopefully run some games with him here soon. But he has asked the question: what has been your favorite story experience within TTRPGs that keeps you involved in the game?
All right. One more time. One more time. What has been your
What has been
favorite
your
story
favorite
experience?
story experience within TTRPGs that keeps you
Um,
involved in the game? And I have pinned it.
Gosh. So my favorite story experience. Um, I don't even know how to begin to even pick just one. Um, okay. I've been so blessed with so many wonderful creative players to engage with them and work with them and have such incredible experience at the table. But then I've also just diving into this world, seeing so many different actual and live plays that go on. And if couldn't tell, definitely love Critical Role up there. This is where my wife and I, we got a one bedroom apartment and we make the most of our space. But
Yeah.
this is typically when we have our D&D sessions here. We have it right here in the apartment. So I have one of my favorite quotes from campaign 2 is try to, I've left every place better than I found it. Um, but I
Sadly, the
really,
way you have your angle on your
yeah,
screen, all I see is found it.
yeah.
I'm like,
We'll just pop it up. I
there
left
we
every
go.
place better than I found it. Good old Molly Mock.
Hmm.
My favorite story experience. Gosh, I
Give
don't
us
know.
give us one. The first one that
Okay.
comes to your head right now.
Should it be here? Tell me this though. Should it be from um, something like Critical Role or something from
No. I think
Gygax, or
he's
should it be from one of my
stating what
homebrew
is.
settings?
I think he's stating within your experience. So, what is
Okay.
your favorite experience? Because if I know Arclight Court, that's what he wants to know your
Okay.
personal experience, not what you saw in Critical Role.
Well, I'll tell you what. So, my personal experience, I'll harken back to when I was a player. I got to be a player and go from level 1 to level 20 when I joined that campaign in 2021. And it went on until 2023, and it was just phenomenal campaign. Couldn't have asked for a better, experience into it. Shout out to my original game master, Demick, the man, the myth, the legend. But that was such an incredible experience. Something I learned so much was I played a paladin who died multiple times
Mm-hmm.
and came back as different races. And the final arc of it, I ended up possessing a body as a result of a combination between Bahamut and the Raven Queen, and it was quite an experience. um, but I think it was really that experience of going from level 1 to 20 in the sense of a character who could hardly do anything to now was making deals with gods and taking favors. It was a really really cool experience to be able to go from you know what I felt with a lot of times in my life growing up of having not a lot of power, not having a lot of autonomy, to now being able to step in and save others and protect the realm, um, was a really fulfilling experience and something that, you know, made me really feel like, hey, you know, uh, really, you work with other people and you put your mind to it, anything can happen.
Absolutely.
And I attribute that experience a lot to why I started becoming a game master. Was feeling like, I love the storytelling aspect of it, and I would love to be able to share that with other people and join that in with them. And I'm just going to step up and do it.
Awesome.
And here we
No,
are.
that's perfect. I'm going to caveat this a little bit. First off, I'm going to state one thing crazy. I've been playing for over 20 years and I've only done one campaign at level 20.
Yeah.
The fact that you got that on your first campaign is huge.
I know. I am
Like,
so
be
grateful and lucky for
be
that.
grateful for that one. I
Yeah.
know people that have been playing for 40 plus years and have never made a campaign where their game went from the beginning of the game of the rule set to the end. Like,
Yeah.
it's such a big deal. Um, because not only is it a big deal on a scale like that, it's a big deal because as your character develops, as your character grows, so much has been built behind it.
Yes.
And I tell people all the time that when we get certain areas of the world, and I've asked my players, and I'll do this about every 5 or 6 levels, I'll ask, is your character ready to move to the next level? Because if not, we can legend them right now. We can tell
Yeah.
them they're the hero of the town, they're the hero of the planet, because sooner or later, characters don't want to die. I don't want to die. Like, I'd rather retire my character, have him go sit in a castle and chill out for the next, 300 years until he's ready to pass away in his good old youth, or in his good old ending. Um, there has to be a reason, right? There has to be something that's going to push my character to move to that level when he's at 17 or 18. Um,
Mhm.
and it has to be astronomical.
I will say
I
though,
want to
on
know.
that note,
Sure, go
real
for
quick,
it.
I just want to add on that note, that is also what I tell my players though, is that, you know, when you think about these these legends, right? How did they
Mm-hmm.
start? And the big thing is I tell them it's because they went out and sought after to do those things. They put themselves out there to do the unthinkable and to go into the unknown, not necessarily danger or to find a strong item or anything else, but just to go and risk it to see what is around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And that pursuit is what makes you go from 1 to 20.
Absolutely. Well, more questions are coming in, so happy hour continues. Uh, what is your long-term goal with this homebrew you've made?
Yes. So I really want to get it published. I would just absolutely love to do a whole series of books, both on the different regions that have, culminated across the world, 5 centuries from the 21st century of all this warfare and how it's changed, and do different, regions and different areas, histories of certain places that have their own over the course of, 500 years. They've created their own. Would love to see that. I would also, because of this, I've made a ton of homebrew items and monsters, and uh, that is another thing that I would love to be able to do. Is just a whole monster manual from this, and just a whole, just inventory of all these items and where they come from and the lore and all these things. So I mean, there's so much I could be able to do with this, and I really would love to do any of it. Um, that would be the absolute goal and dream, is to be able to write that down and share it with everyone.
You heard it here, folks. We're gonna make this happen. I don't know how we're gonna make it happen. We're gonna make it happen
Yes.
because that's one thing the Tabletop Misfits does is we promote other people, uh, and
I'm
then
very
we
grateful.
hopefully get it back a little bit here and there. And tonight it has been nothing but a pleasure to not only have you here, but to have all the people in chat. It has been so much fun, and we're more questions continue to come in, which is what
Yeah,
this whole thing
bring them
is
in,
built under.
please.
The next question is from AKA Holiday, one of our
Oh, Aaron, what's up?
new members.
That's one of my players. Great
Awesome.
guy.
So, what is the most surprising decision a player at one of your tables has made?
All right. There's a lot. There's a lot.
Give
However,
us one.
one that always sticks out to me, and I tell my players, I say anything is possible. Anything is possible. And I had
Risky thing to
one.
say.
Yeah, I had one player who very much wanted to see what was possible. And I applaud him because he did it in character.
Mm.
Um, and I'm not going to say his name because he's going to know immediately once I describe the situation. But his character was, doing the typical travel montage and everything,
Yeah.
and ended up coming across a tornado. And what do most people do in a tornado? Hunker down,
Yeah. Hide.
try to, hide. Yeah. And then, you're probably thinking, well, okay, maybe he wants to be like a storm chaser, kind of character, fearless, something else. He went a totally different direction. He tried to surf it. He tried to ride the tornado. Um, it did not go well. Um, he
But if
barely
it would have,
survived.
oh my goodness, it would have been amazing.
If it would have, yeah. Um, but man, it was crazy. It was just the wildest series of dice rolls to figure out how do we mechanically do this, rather than just toss it up to sure or no. Right? I was like,
Right.
let's see, let's make some choices here. Let's try to see what goes on here. But it was hilarious, and we could not stop laughing.
I'm so glad
Um,
that you do that. And I hate to cut you off for a second, but this is
oh
something
no,
I
please,
really have to catch on with this. Let your players do amazing
yeah,
things, but put a dice roll or put something behind it so that they understand that there is possibility for it, but it might not be always.
yeah,
Because, and I tell people all the time, I was like, the crazier stuff you do, the more opportunity I have to give you that opportunity, but we have to put something behind it. Like if you, I have this a very similar experience because I had a group of level 4 characters that decided they wanted to try to. We're in Tomb of Annihilation. Anybody knows what Tomb of
uh,
Annihilation is?
yes,
There's dinosaurs roaming everywhere, right?
yes, the
I
adventure
say,
of disintegration.
right. So they're wandering through the desert thinking that life is great. And they come upon a dinosaur and they said, "Oh, that's cool." And they walked past it. And I like random tables before the game. I don't do random tables ever in a game. But
Mm,
I will run tables. I'll roll random tables before the game so that I can write the story based on what the random table would come up with. And they had the experience where they were going to at least see in the distance a Tyrannosaurus Rex. My four goofy fourth level players go, how can we tame it?
mm.
6 different rolls, and these suckers didn't roll under a 20. I gave them a T Rex at level 4. And then
There
they
you go.
said, how do we ride it? I said, that's up to you. They
Yeah.
used the T Rex to kill the Triceratops, to strip its skull, to shove it on top of the T Rex as a mount, like a saddle.
Okay.
You can't write these things. Like,
No.
you can't do this by yourself ever.
Mm-mm. It's so
And
much better
it's
with
so much
others.
better because that's exactly what you just said. Those are the moments where you're either laughing to the point of tears, crying to the point of tears,
Hmm.
or as I have said in many cases, something is getting thrown at you because as a game master, I've had multiple things thrown at me um, before I started doing online gaming, which is probably
Yeah.
why I do online GMing now because I can't get things thrown at me anymore. So,
Fair. Um, yeah, I will say another surprising thing. It was less of like, that kind of chaotic willpower,
yeah.
but was actually something that was super fun and was also wild. Was I had run a previous campaign in one of these cities, kind of like a historical aspect to kind of help me flesh out the city. I did a little mini campaign
Hmm.
with a player, and they went through this whole story arc with the god and everything. Fast forward, a year and a half, 2 years later, I have one of my current games that's going on through Rogue Game Masters. They're in that same city, 200 years in the future. I had a player end up doing almost verbatim the same motions that this other character had done in a previous campaign 2 centuries prior to basically channel with this god. And I was like, now they had no idea what they were wading into when they did that. And but I was like, wow, this is okay, so I'm keeping my poker face behind the DM screen, and I'm pulling up my notes from that campaign from 2 years prior, and I'm going through and I'm like looking at the mechanics that we had come down for when that happened, and when they channeled that deity, and I was like, okay. So I talked to the player, as we're going through the session and the role play, and asked him to basically, unknowing, he didn't know that he was rolling the same dice rolls to see if the same interaction would occur that he was going through the motions for. The player for the campaign that happened 2 years prior was a level 15 character. The player that was in my current campaign at the time was, I think, level 2. And what ended up happening was a whole bunch of stuff that was invoked by a level 15 character that a level 2 character in a different campaign ended up invoking, and well, he died almost instantaneously. But it was such an incredible experience, and I did not see it coming. I didn't think it was going to be going on, and thankfully, I have all these different Google Docs from all these different sessions and notes. But it was so cool, and it was also so wild to see that happen. And the whole party did not see it coming. And I told them from session 0, like, I will never, just kill off your character. I will never just, fudge the dice rolls, to make something cool or something different happen. But man, it was wild. The emotion that occurred so randomly. And it was something that almost happened, like I said, step by step 2 years prior in a different campaign. It was so cool.
That's awesome. And that's crazy that is part of the the story, right? Like, we never think that deja vu is a thing until it happens to us, and you're like, holy goodness. Like, I've written this character.
Yes.
And I've been to this point where I've written characters years ago, like in other campaigns, and then I'm listening to some of my players and I'm going, I've already done it. Like, I know the outcome to this.
Yes.
It's not a good outcome, I promise you. And it is crazy. Homebrew Coffee, welcome. Wow,
Oh, welcome.
So many people popping in tonight. It's fantastic. Goodness gracious, this is a joy. We still have questions for more, so make sure if you're just tuning in, pop in there real quick. Shoot us put a message up in the chat. Give us your D&D questions, and we'll keep answering them. We got a few more minutes of that, of course.
Yeah. While they do that, I'm also going to throw in another link if you would be so kind to permit.
I'll pop it over there.
To make it happen. If anyone is interested, I am wearing this wonderful t-shirt, the Game Master t-shirt. This was a wonderful collaboration between Dungeon Drip that I'm very excited we're going to hopefully do more in the future, and but it's quickly become my favorite shirt that I love to GM in now.
I need one.
Hey man, go to the link I just put in there. You can see all the stuff. We've got it as shirts, we've got it as hoodies. They even made it possible for phone cases. So that's definitely something I'm gonna pick up soon, because it's way more exciting of a phone case than what I currently have. So
no, I feel there.
But yeah, it's that, and that is something that I've just been so grateful for, again, with being able, with this Instagram and this year of diving into D&D professionally. I get to do this, talk to you and talk with so many wonderful people in the chat about this hobby that I absolutely love. I got to go to my first con this year, which was so exciting, and to be able to present and run a professional game over there for 8 players, which was a ton of fun. Everybody loves player versus player combat, and to be able to do things like this, where one thing that I've always noticed is, in just my few years with D&D, is that there's not a lot of apparel for game masters, and so that was something that I approached with Dungeon. Was like, hey, can can we make this happen? And they were like, let's do it. And they've been such a fantastic team and wonderful people to work with.
Awesome.
And to help another small business is huge. And I'm so grateful that I can do. So please, by all means, if you can go over there and support them, I would be very, very grateful. But yeah, what's another question that we got? Because
So
like I said,
first off, I do want to
this.
no, right? Yeah, we got 15 more minutes, and I'm definitely down to continue this until the end. But I will say though, just as a shout out, Dungeon Drip, Dungeon Grandmaster, both of these companies are
Yes.
actual D&D based apparel companies. And they're supporting not only just basic Dungeons and Dragons mentality, they're supporting your game masters and they're supporting your communities out there, including the Misfits and including GM. So these are the places that you want to be going for buying. Um, we've got a whole set of lines coming up. We actually have like a full line coming out for our Monday night show, Dress the Quest, that is all
Yeah,
sorts
you were
of
telling me
character
about that.
stuff,
That's
and
gonna be
it's going
awesome.
to be a lot of fun. Um, this one, I'm going to let you kind of give your spiel on it, and then I'm going to drop something in the chat as well, because we
Okay.
had a guy on the channel a couple weeks ago that has made this specific question almost so easy to deal with nowadays. And it says, how do you ensure your table has a safe place for players?
Yes. And I believe you're probably talking about Tom, right? With
I am
backup player
definitely
safety.
talking about Tom.
Yeah. What a
I'm
great
gonna
guy.
drop that. I'm gonna drop. Nope, that's not the right. I copied your post because you sent that, and I just had um my
Yeah.
docs
So
post.
so for me, I actually prior to doing D&D and everything else, I used to work in higher education, and it was a really big thing um, to make sure that places were safe. Because I particularly what I did was a lot of emergency response. I was
Ah,
first person on the scene for a crisis. Oftentimes before campus police, local police, state police, firefighters, paramedics, anyone else arrived. Oftentimes I was the first one on the scene, and so I trained in first aid and everything else, and wrote all kinds of different kind of stuff. But the big thing of what I did was I always wanted to make sure that when I arrived on the scene, I was there advocating for the students and making sure that they were safe, that they were heard, and trying to de-escalate situations. So I always want to make sure that I brought that to the forefront of my games. And a big way that I make it a safe space is that I try to take as much pressure off of the players um, to be themselves and just enjoy the game and have fun for the game without feeling like they have to compete or that there's any expectations.
mhm.
Um, because there are just sometimes when you just want to show up and you just want to talk. There are times when you just don't, where you've spent the entire day talking and you're out of spoons and you're exhausted and you just want to kind of sit there and just enjoy the space. And I try to make sure that my players always feel that there's no expectations individually placed on them other than to just have fun. And that's what I try to always make the core of it, is just having fun. And I tell people, just be respectful, be kind, be empathetic. And if I see something or I hear something, I will absolutely talk to that player after the game, and be like, hey, I noticed a little bit of tension here, or I noticed, you seem to be a little bit, disengaged, or something might, I kind of picked up something might have kind of rubbed you the wrong way, you know, and just talk to them, and be personable and engage with them and let them know, hey, you can talk to me about things. When it comes to my
Absolutely.
professional games, we have a Discord, that everybody can engage in. And what's nice about that is it is a dedicated space for them to be able to chat, but it's also a place where they can do so without having to give up their phone number, any of their social media, and they can freely engage in there without giving out their personal information or, you know, their personal stuff or lives influencing what's going on in the group or in the space.
Mm.
But then at the same time, if somebody has to leave or somebody wants to leave, they can do so without feeling like I can never go there to this place again, or I can never, now have to unfriend these people or anything else. And so I always try to just make that easy for people to be a part of, but also if they need to disengage, to know that they have that autonomy to do so, um, and give them that autonomy in whatever way I can to be able to be themselves in the game.
Absolutely. Well, final question, it seems, for the evening
Okay.
says, did you, and this is a great question to answer at the evening, did you ever think you'd do this professionally when you first started GMing?
No, not at all. I did not. It really was, I just had this, always loved collaborative storytelling, always loved building stories and building worlds, always loved writing, from short stories to poems to longer narratives. And so D&D made sense. Then upon being in D&D and very much feeling, like, that, wow, like I can do this, I would love to be able to do this with other people and share that. Doing so, and then it really was a byproduct of not having enough D&D and also no regular D&D at the time. And so thankfully it coincided with seeing this stuff from Chris with Rogue Game Masters, and I was like, I'm going to give it a shot. And then, just sticking to it and being like, let's see, who shows up and who wants to be a part of this. And then next thing I know, I had players that are like, hey, I want to be in another campaign, or hey, I can't do Tuesdays, what about Thursdays, or et cetera, et cetera. And I was just so grateful. And
Right.
if it were up to me, I would love to be able to do this all the time, every day. But I do have a 9 to 5 that allows me to be able to do this.
Absolutely.
And I'm very grateful for that. But yeah, it's not at all what I thought would happen, but I'm so, so grateful for it. And with the Instagram, we're about to hit 5,000 followers on that, which is so exciting. I'm doing this big collaborative giveaway with a ton of wonderful people like
Mm-hmm.
yourself, to be able to give back to the community. And so, no, I had no idea that in 2021, starting with D&D, that I would be a game master one day, and then from that be able to do this in the capacity that I am today, and be able to also now have this position and this platform to be able to help others, to work with other creators and small businesses, and to give back to people in the community is so exciting and so much fun. And I'm just so grateful that I have that opportunity. But I never saw it coming, and I'm gratefully surprised.
Yeah, no, and I will tell you, 5K is a big deal. Like it is something you should be proud of. It is something you should be you have worked
Thank you.
hard for. Um, I still haven't cracked the code for that yet, so maybe I need to have more conversations with you, which I think is going to be in the near future, anyways. Being the fact that
Yeah,
not only
please.
are you only like what, like an hour and a half away, like hour max away from me,
Yeah.
so there is that. Um, and here soon, home tables will be returning back to my house, which will be incredible next year, which I can't wait. Where and there's some things in 2025 that the D&D community is not ready for. Between our collaborations with InkGM, collaborations with Weather Dragon, collaborations with Rogue Game
Yeah.
Masters, and more. I
Amazing.
never thought that I would be helping a convention this year, and yet we are launching our first convention in November for with Pushing Dragons for the Dragon Fair, and
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
things are crazy right now. But that is because of people like you and people like this community
Thank you.
that rally around us. I'm going to ask this question one more time,
Yeah.
partially because I know Morgan is in here, and partially because we have such an amazing crew tonight. I am willing to go to MystiCon this year, but I need help.
Mm.
um, my Venmo is literally at Tabletop Misfits. If anybody wants to donate to that cause specifically, I will tell you straight up though, if I do not make the point where I do go, all of that money will go back to giveaways and things like that for the show, because I'm not taking a single cent from this for myself. The only way taking the cent from me is if I'm going to MystiCon to go hang out with Morgan and a bunch of other people out there, including Weather Game Master or Weather Dragon. And if I get too much money, I'm taking Ink GM with me because I'm just going to pick him up and we'll just go.
Dude,
So,
I would be so grateful. Mysticon looks amazing. I
Mysticon
absolutely
looks
love what
amazing.
Morgan and Chris are doing and everything. It's so cool.
Everybody's doing amazing out there, and it'd be the first time I'd ever been to the West Coast for a convention.
Yeah.
Rally behind us. We'll be there. We'll take videos. We'll take images. We'll call in. We'll cut everything up we can out there. But we need your help. That's all I'm saying with that one. And that can be done in many ways. The first way to do this, of course, is the cheapest way. Like, share, and comment on everything we do here at Tabletop Misfits and everything that InkGM does. That is a free option that everybody can do here. That just means so much to us because it shows us that you're actually enjoying the content. Second off, tag absolutely everything with hashtag Raise Your Glass.
Yes.
Raise Your Glass is a initiative we're running in 2024, going into 2025 with community members. If you want to be a part of it, let us know so that we can continue to connect with you as well. And last but not least, come hang out with us. That's the way we need this to work because we're all going to continue to grow. You guys make it out. We will make it worth it. Morgan, if we can get there, we will get there. I promise you that.
Yes, sir.
If I can get enough money for a plane ticket and a hotel room, and I will split a hotel room with someone, I don't care. I will be there. I promise you. And we'll be doing a whole thing with that. 2025 is a big year for the Misfits, and 2025 is going to be a huge year for InkGM. Hitting that 5,000 mark is a huge deal, and it makes so much influence in the world of Dungeons & Dragons that way. Continue to raise your glasses, everybody. Oh, what to talk about real quick. Two things. One, if you want to see the crazy type of GMing I'm doing, we're doing a D&D one-shot over at Gen Con TV next Monday with a whole bunch of other content creators and cosplayers where they're going to be going through a prison break, and that's going to be a lot of fun.
Always fun.
So don't want to miss that. Secondly, we have a new show launching on Friday nights with our friend in the chat room, Beaker. He's going to be doing things like building Gunpla, building Legos. He's starting to learn how to paint and build terrain. Go check him out over on Instagram and go give him some love. And finally, when we close, because I forget to do this every time, but I'm doing it tonight. When we close, stick around. We're rating somebody. When you jump into that channel, make sure that they know you're coming from the Misfits and you're having a great time over here because that's how we're going to continue to grow over here.
Yes.
All right, everybody. I hope you all had a wonderful time. Thank you once again, InkGM, for hanging out with us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me, man.
Last thing you want to say tonight?
I just want to say just how wonderful this has been. Appreciate you having me. This is my first official interview I've gotten to do for D&D, which has just been a really awesome milestone and humbling experience for myself. So I can't thank you enough for having me. Again, big shout out to Rogue Game Masters for being a big part of why this is happening, and to Dungeon Drip for just being just great people to work with. And thank you so much. And the biggest shout out to my players and my best player, my wife. Couldn't do any of this without her, so I'm just incredibly grateful. And thank you all for spending your time with us tonight. This has been so much fun and just an absolute blast, and appreciate everything. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful rest of your evening and a great weekend ahead of you, and I hope it's full of D&D.
Awesome. Continue rolling your dice. Raise your glasses high. This is Last Call. I am Tabletop Misfits, and I am your innkeeper for the evening. I hope you had a wonderful night, and we'll see you guys all next week for our next
Stay hydrated.
episode.
Drink your water.
And our next week's game master is Run GMG. Go check him out on Instagram.
Nice.
We'll see you guys here soon. Have a wonderful evening.
Bye, everybody.